Okay, welcome back to episode 2 of In the Good Guy Corner. And this time we're going to be talking about how we make things harder in our life. Okay, so I'm going to share several examples, but they all kind of fit into the number one way that we make things harder in our lives is by believing things that are not true. Okay. So this is a foundational skill that I use in my work with people is really separating out what are the facts and then what are the sentences or the thoughts in our mind where we make things harder. And so I learned from Brene Brown that if you've heard of her, she's a researcher, author, popular TED Talk speaker. She shares that our brain is wired for a complete story. And that means a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when our brain does not know some part of the story, it is wired to make it up just on default. We don't turn it on to do that. It's just the default that if we don't know the beginning of a story, if we don't know the middle of a story, or if we don't know how a story ends, our brain is going to make it up. So this happens a lot in relationships. When we're dealing with another person, there are always things that we don't know about what's happening with them. And sometimes we just enter in the middle of the story. We don't know, okay, what happened first that then caused you to act like this? And then now what's going to happen, right? And so our brain makes up, oh, if that person, if my wife or if my child or if my boss or my coworkers or my employees, if they're acting this way, it must be because, and we just fill in the blank. And then our brain thinks that it's true. Okay, so we make it up and then we believe that it's true. And so this skill of being able to separate out the facts from the thoughts is really just a superpower that we have, especially in our relationships with other people. So I'm going to give some more examples of this. So one of the categories of things is when other people say things to us. Okay, so somebody said, like our wife might say, you never help, or you're always late. Or our boss might say, I can't count on you, or right, whatever, whatever the people might say. So think in your mind of what is something that somebody has said lately that's bothering you and about you, right? They say something about you, and then pause and recognize that the only fact that's for sure is that they said those words. It is not necessarily a fact that what they said is true. And by making that separation, it gives you space to say, okay, here's what was said. This is the quote, right? We can quote the other person. It's a fact that they said what they said. But then we can have some distance from, is that actually true? Or when might that be true? As humans, we are complex enough creatures that there are no black and white absolutes about us. We can always find evidence that something is true, and we can find evidence that something is not true, right? There's like this whole spectrum of things. So if somebody says you never help, well, okay, that's she's looking at evidence for that. But that's not the full story, right? And our brain is just only looking for that evidence when we're believing that. But again, as a human, there's the whole array of evidence. There's times when you do help, and then there's times when you don't help. There's times when you are late, and then there's times when you're not late, and kind of everything in between. So we want to be able to take those things that other people say about us and put it in the category as only a fact that they said it, not a fact that it's true. And then we can find the parts that we can agree on, and find a way of coming together in a useful way in our relationships, right? So it's only a fact that it was said, not a fact that it's true. Now, another category is the things that your own brain offers you. So again, our brain is making up stories. When we don't know some part of the story, our brain makes it up. And sometimes this is about our own self. So an example is like, I'm not good enough, can be something that our brain offers us. And just because we're thinking I'm not good enough does not make it true. It's a very common thing that many people think, right? I'm not good enough, or I can't ever please my boss, or I can't ever please my spouse or my parents or the people in our life, right? And then we believe that. So when we're believing things that are not true, it's not true that we can't ever please people. And the next category is things where we make an assumption. So again, we take some part of our life, like for instance, something that's happened in the past, and then we believe nothing ever works for me. So we want to separate that out and identify what is it that actually happened in the past? What are the facts? Like maybe I started a business that lasted for 15 months. There would be a fact, but then the thought, nothing ever works for me, is an added sentence in our mind that we believe is true when we're not paying attention to it closely, but it's not actually true, right? Another example could be I start things and don't finish them. Well, most humans can find examples where that could apply. But then when we take it and make it be a whole, like that's our identity. I'm just a person who starts things and I don't ever finish them. That is not a fact. So again, being able to separate out that there's a fact that you started something and didn't finish it, but not an identity or part of you that is, I am a person who starts things and doesn't finish them, or I never finish things, right? So these are some examples. There are many more. I want to invite you to start paying attention in your life to the things that you are thinking and separate them into these two categories of there are facts, and then there are the thoughts, the sentences in our mind that we believe are true that aren't actually true. Because in the big picture, and the reason why this matters is because these things make life harder for us. When we are believing things that are not true, we make our own life harder. When we are believing our assumptions about other people or why they're doing what they're doing, or especially when it is about us, we make our life harder. We make our relationships harder. So this is a superpower. You're going to hear me say that a lot, because I think that a lot of the things that I'm teaching here are superpowers in our lives. So my challenge for you today, this very day that you're listening to this, get a piece of scratch paper or something that you can throw away, right? I don't want it to be in a journal or a notebook or anything that you're going to try and keep, because you'll censor yourself more. So this is a paper that you're going to shred or throw away. And I want you to identify something in your life where something is bothering you, right? Some relationship, conflict, or something that's on your mind. And go to this piece of paper and just write down the things that you think about it. Don't censor yourself. Just write down the sentences. And then the one thing I want you to do, well, two things I want you to do. Just observe it after you write it. Just observe. Don't judge. Just notice and underline any facts. Okay? And that's it. That's just the skill that I want you to start practicing, to write down the sentences and then underline anything that's a fact. And what you'll find is that hardly anything in there is going to be a fact. And this can just start to help you strengthen and create this skill of separating out what are facts and what are thoughts. Because the great news is that the thoughts, we can choose whether to believe them or not. We can't necessarily choose that they show up. Lots of thoughts just show up uninvited. But when they are things that are not actually facts, we can look at them and say, oh, okay, my brain made this up this way. This is not actually a fact. Therefore, I can just observe that it's there and not believe it and not have to base my actions on it, right? So, very simple task. Piece of paper. Write down some of those thoughts, those sentences in your mind about whatever it is that's bothering you, and then underline the facts. That's going to help you increase that awareness. All right. So, this is Coach Mimi. This is the Good Guy Corner, and I will be here next time. Bye.